Dr. Canaday and Fallon, thank you so much for joining us. We've been really looking forward to this, so I appreciate it. For those who may not know you in our audience, do you mind briefly introducing yourself and how you got to the Sixes Ranch and your roles today?
Yeah, so my name is Fallon. I did my internship in 2018, so I did a sales prep internship during that summer. Loved it, fell in love with the place. Came back briefly in 2019, had to go finish school, stuff like that. And then in summer of 23, Dr. Kane hired me back on full time to kind of do the sales prep.
I also started with a sales prep internship in 2006, and then came loved it so much I came back the next year in 2007, and then went off to veterinary school and finished that, and came straight here in 2011. So going on year 14 here. Uh, Initially, first 12 years or so full time as a associate veterinarian, and then about 2.5 years ago moved up to the horse division manager role.
And so you are your technical title is horse division manager, and Fallon, your technical title is sales prep.
Well, so technically, I call her
Everything.
the official floater.
That's
She,
an
she definitely she heads up our sales prep program for sure. But then the rest of the year, she helps in the clinic with embryo flushes. She helps with veterinary technician type work. She rides horses for me. I mean, she kind of does a little bit of everything.
Yeah, depends on the day.
amazing. You're never bored, which is a good thing. Okay, so jumping into sales prep, what is most exciting to you about sales prep season? And, if you want to go into least favorite and favorite part, whatever, however you want to answer that is perfect.
Yeah, I to me the most, I guess I would say maybe not exciting, but rewarding part is just seeing how much they change, from like the day we bring them up and seeing how much they grow and kind of mature, and then the day that they sell, they're almost like sometimes unrecognizable, from the day that we bring them up. So that's always really cool to see kind of like the progress that they make, and it's very rewarding to kind of see how far they come. My least favorite, I think I would say, is the day they leave, because sometimes you do get kind of attached to them, and then you sell them and they go to their new home. So sometimes that's sad, but it is very rewarding.
Mine's kind of similar. One of my favorite parts of it is to see the progress, but not quite from her perspective of beginning and end, but to see the progress from I planned 2 years ago this breeding, then we did it last year, and then this year you get to see the product. So to me, that's kind of the culmination of the last 3 years or 2 to 3 years, and it's exciting to see. Love that. And then it's just changing the seasons, going from wrapping up breeding season to starting sales prep season. So just kind of a change of season's always fun. To me, the least favorite part for me is day one of sales prep season because we're still doing breeding season, and so it's a Tetris game of trying to figure out where we're going to get enough stall space and how we're going to shuffle, and I mean it takes a whole bunch of logistics trying to make that happen. So honestly, day one for me is my least favorite.
Get the hardest day out of the way first. Oh my gosh, that's great. I remember I used to work for Bobby Walton at CSU a little bit doing sales prep and stuff. And she always used to tell us, do not cry when they leave, do not cry. If you're going to cry, walk away. And I definitely had to walk away a couple times. Okay, so sales prep from a bird's eye view at the ranch. What does that look like? I know that our audience is really curious about kind of your guys' process. When does it start? What is day one? How that progresses, whatever you could share there.
Yeah, so for our yearlings specifically, we do some halter breaking when they're weanlings. So they do get handled as weanlings, and then they get turned out. So then when they come up as yearlings, they're it's not day one, but they still need to be halter broke. So day one is just getting hands on them, halter breaking, getting them gentle, stuff like that. And then once they kind of progress, they start progressing from there. That's when we start, exercising them. They go on the walkers, they get on an exercise program. We really do a lot of groundwork with them. So they all learn, how to lunge, how to work in a round pen. We work on trailer loading, bathing. It's a lot of desensitizing and groundwork. We really flag them out really well and stuff like that, so that they're good and gentle for when people take them home. They really have a really good foundation. So to just be a horse that people can use, no matter what they want them for, because, people come here and buy them for lots of different reasons, but we really tried the young horses to give them a good solid foundation to where whatever people kind of want to do with them, they're kind of set up for success, even just in everyday day-to-day things.
Good job.
Thanks.
And when does sales prep season start in Guthrie?
Probably mid-June, middle of June, we start doing all the Tetris shuffling and figuring out where we're going to put everything. And as we get room, we start slowly adding more and more in until we're fully up and rolling.
Yeah, and that goes till September, end of September?
Till the end of September, usually.
Yeah.
Yes,
quite a bit that happens in a very short amount of time for those horses. That's awesome. And how many horses are you normally prepping per year?
So, for like the Remuda Sale, on average, we sell between 50 to 60 horses. That kind of includes the yearlings. It includes some of the younger riding horses and also the cowboys horses. And, the cowboy geldings, we don't really sales fit those. They're the cowboys using geldings, and so they're out getting ranch experience, and they don't really go through the sales prep program. But so somewhere around that number.
Busy times. What would you say are your main goals for each horse in your program?
Yeah, I mean, really, I want them to be really set up for success, no matter where they go or what anybody, kind of wants to do with them. Especially for the yearlings, some people, maybe they are just buying it as maybe a brood mare. Maybe some people do want to take them and show them or ride them, stuff like that. It's a wide variety that people kind of come for. But really, I just want them to be able to load that filly up and take her home and have a really nice horse that they can get along with. They can do whatever their goal is with her. She's set up to where she can kind of excel. We try and just build their confidence, teach them kind of how to think through things and problem solve, so that, again, no matter where they kind of end up, they have just a really good foundation of, oh, this is kind of what's expected of me, and they can kind of get along in any program, and anybody who buys one of them can find success with them.
One of our core values that we always strive for, whether talking about breeding, vet services, or sales fitting and selling horses, but is that we always strive for excellence. Fallon does such a phenomenal job with like these yearlings, in particular, but in setting them up for success and getting them to be the best that they possibly can be. There's that saying, in terms of like the nutritional topic of, fat is everyone's favorite color. Well, we always talk about like we'd rather have them fit than fat, and so we're always, individually trying to get them to the best that they can be so that we can hit that mark of excellence.
I love that. Fit over fat. That's good. What does fitness mean to you guys? Because I'm sure that varies for each individual horse a little bit, right? Kind of.
Yeah, from a veterinary perspective, being fit is so very important, because whether somebody's going to take one of these young horses on to be a brood mare, if they're overweight and fat, it sets them up to have metabolic issues. It sets them up to have feet issues. So if you're feeding them too much and too aggressively, you'll be more prone to developmental issues like OCD. A good majority of these horses go on into the performance sector and/or ranch horses and riding horses and that sort of thing. So from that perspective, you want them to be strong and in shape, and the more in shape and fit you are, the more likely you are to hold up to the everyday wear and tear and, avoiding injuries and all that sort of thing. So getting the good foundation that Fallon gets on these things really sets them up to go any direction, and be extremely versatile.
I love it. That kind of sets up my nutritional questions for you. But from a nutritional perspective, I think this is important because I don't know if horse owners always fully understand how fitness or nutrition really starts, from the day that they're born through life. It's not something you kind of pick up later on in life when they're struggling. So how would you describe your nutritional philosophy at the ranch with the horses that you're prepping and raising?
The 10,000 foot view of it is several years ago, I had a guest come to the ranch, and we had our yearlings up in the chute getting their feet trimmed. And the person walked up and they're like, "Man, those are some good looking 2 year olds." And I was like, "Those are actually just yearlings." And I heard it said one time, and I don't know who to give credit to, but I've stole the saying, but about it just a combination of good feeding and good breeding. And I really do believe in that. If you take good genetics and good quality horses and you feed them good, it's amazing the results that you'll get. And so that's kind of what I target. To answer your question more tactically, I think I'm a firm believer in you need a good roughage. Whether, like our horses, after we wean them, we'll put them out on good quality wheat fields, through the winter months. And then, depending on the times of the year, you might need to supplement with some good quality alfalfa. But having good roughage feed source is very important, for base layer. From there, you can add in some grains. I'm a big fan of having a balanced ration. And also on these young horses, as long as you're paying attention their entire life and you have that good foundation, you can just be fairly conservative because a lot of people have the tendency of not doing anything initially. And then all of a sudden now it's sales fitting time. And then they just pour the feed and grain to them and it's not balanced and it's way too hot and rich. And then they end up growing way too fast. And that's how you start getting into OCDs and some developmental issues, and some feet issues and that sort of thing. So I would much rather just use, a balanced type grain real conservatively over time and do that slow build from the time they're born slash weaned all the way on up till they're sold. I'm a big fan of vitamins and minerals. I take vitamins every day personally myself, and we also give them to our horses out in the wheat fields, even when they're in the pasture, and then especially when they come up. And we give them the 4/6 Equine vitamin mineral supplement. It's been great to give them a well-rounded balance as well. And then I'm a big fan of oils too. Adding in omega-3 oil. I think that helps with the anti-inflammatory components of a growing horse, and then also helps with their hair coat and just helps put on the body condition that we want. So that's kind of a big overview
No,
of it.
that's perfect. I haven't heard the good feeding, good breeding. That's a good rule of thumb. I've heard through the grapevine that you're a big believer in taking care of your young horse's joint health and being proactive about that. Could you guys tell us a little bit about that part of your program?
Sure. So, just some past experiences and things I've seen at different outfits, like I said, if you push one too hard too fast, you are way more prone to developing OCDs specifically, developmental joint issues. Also, I've seen where if you push them too hard too fast, you'll set them up for, pedal osteitis and different feet issues. And so I think you do have to be proactive in your planning and management so you don't feed them, too aggressively right at the end. And it needs to be kind of an all inclusive thing. And it really even goes back to the broodmare. You know, and feeding her well and making sure she, developmentally is that when that baby's a fetus, all the way through the whole process, having good nutrition in front of the horse the whole time, I think is important, and not pushing them too hard and fast at the end. And then also, obviously, big fan of the 4/6 equine joint supplement that we offer. And so as we get like our yearlings up and start self fitting on them, one of the things we add in is the joint supplement to kind of also help, because that's the first time that they are getting stalled in our case, because I'm a firm believer in range horses being range horses. And so the more they run around out in the pasture and whatnot, it helps with their bone growth in that bone stimulation. It helps with their feet. A lot of times, actually, my young horses I'll put out in one of our roughest pastures called Big Bull, and there's a big canyon, a lot of rough country, and it helps them develop really good feet and really good bones. But getting that foundation of growth is important. And then as you start bringing them up and applying stress and pressure from a joint perspective, that's when you add in the joint supplement to kind of help smooth all that out and help take care of the joints because that's important. Also, the other factor too, as we're adding the stress of cells fitting, exercising, getting them fit, we also add in the complete gut health too, to kind of help with the probiotic nature to help with that stress as well. And I think that's been a huge thing.